And we want to look at chapter 1 and just one verse in chapter 1, verse number 6. If you don't mind, please stand with me in respect to God's word. 2 Timothy chapter 1, reading verse number 6. And I'll be reading from the King James Version. Listen for the word of the Lord. Wherefore I put thee in remembrance, that thou stir up the gift of God which is in thee by the putting on of my hands. We'll repeat it one more time. Wherefore I put thee in remembrance, that thou stir up the gift of God which is in thee by the putting on of my hands. Let me read verse 7. For God hath not given us the spirit of fear, but of power and of love and of a sound mind. This afternoon, I want to preach from these words. What would it take to stir you up? Look at your neighbor and say, neighbor, oh neighbor, what would it take to stir you up? Amen. You make me say. My brothers and sisters, fundamentally what I've come to say today can in no way be considered a new revelation. It cannot be considered a groundbreaking discovery or even the opening of some new avenue of theological thought or spiritual reality. Unfortunately, the sermon of this hour is not designed to astound or to astonish. It is a word that will be neither fashionable nor fantastic. Quite frankly, what I have to say to you today, you've heard before. It is a statement to which you will be forced to agree, and above all else, it is a truth of which you have probably spoken many times before yourselves. And what I have to say is this, brothers and sisters, at its base, the cause of Christ requires of those who are his servants both commitment and action. And what I have to say, it may seem simplistic to some and dull to others. Let me warn you, brothers and sisters, not to take my argument lightly or not to take my thesis for granted. Don't forget that everybody in the church who claims to be committed does not necessarily act upon that commitment. And conversely, everybody that is about action in the church may not pursue that action out of a genuine or authentic sense or commitment to the cause of Christ. Don't forget, brothers and sisters, that even though Jesus said that those in the church who are in church, they made a habit of giving the most money and praying the loudest and longest prayers, but they already have their reward. The fact remains that if it is to be genuine or authentic or real, the cause of Christ requires those of us who claim him both commitment and action. And at the same time, I know what I have to say this afternoon about commitment and action is no new revelation. It is not a groundbreaking discovery. It does not open up new avenues of theological thought or spiritual reality. But if you will forgive this intrusion of what may appear to be both trivial and trite, let me assure you that the Christian church and Christianity are causes which are predicated upon two things: commitment and action. For if you claim to be a Christian, then let me remind you, brothers and sisters, that Christianity has a twofold nature. It has faith, but it also requires works. It is what you believe, but it's also what you do. It's what you think, but it's also what you say. It's about worship, but it's also about service. It's about what you do in here, but more especially about what you do outside these four walls. Because anybody can shout on a Sunday morning or a Sunday afternoon, but it's what you do when you Christianity. It's a contradiction in terms, and if you are tired, y'all tired of me already? If I read the Bible correctly, then authentic religion is always about the business of you doing something in order for God to do something. Who told you that religion has anything to do with you being dressed up on Sunday morning